Let's start with the first era of all, the Paleolithic era. 2.5 million years ago, the world has turned cold and you've just invented murder. If you woke up in the Paleolithic, the first thing you'd feel would be cold cutting your skin like microscopic blades. There's no clothing as we know it, just scraps of badly cured animal skin, stiff with dried blood, reeking of death and desperation. You are Homo habilis, handyman. It's an ironic name because you can barely keep fire burning for more than a few hours. Your brain has 600 cubic centimeters of capacity, about the size of a large grapefruit. For comparison, your modern brain has 400 cubic centimeters. You're smart for an animal, but stupid by human standards. Your home is a cave you share with bats, insects, and occasionally, bears. The cave is damp, always damp. Water constantly drips from the ceiling, creating muddy puddles on the rocky floor. The walls are black, with soot from fires that constantly struggle to stay alive against moisture and air currents. In the corners are piles of bones, antelope femurs, bison ribs, cracked skulls of animals you couldn't identify. Some bones have tooth marks, yours. Others have different marks, larger, deeper, from things that could eat you. The smell is indescribable. Imagine the worst public bathroom you've ever smelled, multiplied by organic decay, rancid smoke, and pure fear. It's the smell of unfiltered survival. Your most sophisticated tool is a stone you smashed against another stone until it broke. It's called a chopper. Basically, a rock the size of your fist with a sharp edge created by breaking flakes off the main core. It's not elegant, it's not efficient, but it's 1,000 times better than your fingernails for cutting meat, breaking bones, or defending yourself. Making a chopper requires skill. You have to know what kind of stone breaks usefully. You have to strike at the right angle with the right force. Too soft, and it doesn't break. Too hard, and it disintegrates. Most of your attempts result in useless fragments. When you finally manage to make a good one, you guard it like gold, because it practically is. It's the difference between eating meat and starving, between being able to defend yourself and being devoured. Food is your absolute obsession. You wake up hungry. You go to sleep hungry. You dream about food. Every conscious thought revolves around where to find your next meal and how to avoid becoming something else's meal. Women go out in groups of 3 or 4, always vigilant, always ready to run. They search for buried roots, fallen fruits, bird eggs, anything that might provide calories. They know which plants won't kill them immediately, but that knowledge is limited to a few dozen species. Insects are a delicacy. Fat white larvae hiding under wet rocks. You crush them between your molars, feeling them burst and release their protein fluids. The taste is bitter, the texture sticky, but it's real food. Men attempt to hunt, but hunting is too noble a word for what really happens. It's more like stalking carrion, ambushing wounded animals, or group attacking old and sick creatures. A young, healthy antelope can kill you with one kick. An adult bison can trample you without even noticing. So you wait. You wait for something to die of natural causes, or for a real predator to do the dirty work, and then abandon the carcass. Fire is your god. Getting fire requires rubbing specific sticks for hours until a microscopic spark appears. Then you must transfer that spark to dry grass, blow gently without extinguishing it. Feed it with increasingly larger twigs until you finally have a real flame. The process fails 90% of the time. When fire goes out during the night, especially during storms, the entire tribe can die of cold before dawn. Fire doesn't just give you warmth. It protects you from nocturnal predators, cooks meat, making it more digestible and killing parasites, and provides light to work after sunset. Without fire, you're practically defenseless. Death is literally everywhere. Saber-toothed cats are living nightmares. Felines the size of modern tigers with 20-centimeter canines that can pierce your skull like paper. They hunt silently, appear from nowhere, kill with a single bite. Cave bears are polar bears, the size of small cars. When one decides it likes your cave better than its own, it simply kills you and keeps it. There's no negotiation. Giant hyenas hunt in packs of 20 or 30 individuals. Their strategy is simple. They follow you until you're exhausted, then devour you alive, starting with the softest parts while you're still conscious. But the most lethal enemy has no claws or fangs. It's microscopic, a bacterium that enters through a cut on your foot. In a week, you're burning with fever, delirious, dying slowly while your tribe watches helplessly. There are no antibiotics, no painkillers, no medicine beyond chewing certain leaves that sometimes help with stomach pain. But something magical is starting to happen. On the coldest nights, when wind howls outside the cave and children cry with fear, someone starts making rhythmic sounds, beats a bone against stone, repeats the pattern. Others join instinctively. It's not music as we know it. It's more primal. But it has rhythm, it has intention, and it has a hypnotic effect that calms babies and keeps the group together through the night. It's the first art, the first time a human creates something that has no immediate practical function beyond making other humans feel better. Someone takes charcoal from the fire and draws on the wall. Simple lines, a circle to represent the sun, curved shapes that could be animals, marks that no animal would ever understand, but that other humans look at with fascination. It's representational art. It's symbolic thinking. It's the first time a human tries to externalize what they see in their mind and make it visible to others. And when someone dies, something extraordinary happens. You don't abandon the body to scavengers like any other animal would. You carry it to a special place. You cover it with stones. You place their favorite tools next to the body. Some tribes even put wildflowers. You don't understand death as an abstract concept, but you know something important has gone forever. And that primitive understanding of each individual's unique value is the beginning of something that will one day be called humanity. 300 years ago, you've domesticated fire, and with it, you've domesticated the night. Your brain now has 200 cubic centimeters, nearly the size of a modern brain. You can plan, remember, imagine. You can teach complex skills and learn from others. Your cave is now really a home. You have specific areas for specific activities. A corner for carving tools, another for preparing food, a sleeping area with skins organized like primitive beds, and in the center, always, the fire. The walls are decorated not just with accidental drawings, but with intentional art. Negative hands, created by blowing natural pigment around your palm pressed against rock. Animal silhouettes drawn with charcoal and ochre. Geometric patterns that could be primitive calendars or simply aesthetic expressions. Your tools have evolved dramatically. You no longer just break stones until they have sharp edges. Now you plan how the tool will look before you start carving it. You strike flakes in specific sequences to create predetermined shapes. Spear points from this period are works of art, perfectly symmetrical, sharp as razor blades, balanced to fly straight when thrown. Making one takes days of careful work. A master knapper can make tools so good they're traded with tribes days away. You've learned to cook. Controlled fire means cooked meat, and cooked meat changes everything. It's easier to chew, easier to digest, kills bacteria and parasites, and releases more nutritional calories. But more importantly, cooking allows you to eat parts of animals that were previously inedible. Bones you can crack to access marrow. Internal organs that are toxic raw but nutritious cooked. Plants that are poisonous raw but edible when boiled. Your diet diversifies exponentially. You no longer depend solely on fallen fruit and occasional carrion. 40 years ago, your brain has fully connected, and you're about to change the world forever. You are fully modern Homo sapiens. Your brain has exactly the same size and capacity as any person living today. The only difference between you and a 21st century human is accumulated knowledge. Your cave has become an art gallery. The walls are covered with paintings that rival any modern artwork. Bison running with such realism they seem to leap from the rock. Wild horses with manes flowing in the wind, human hands in dozens of different colors. But they're not just pretty pictures. They're maps, calendars, stories. A painting of mammoths with babies indicates where the herd migrates during mating season. A series of red dots marks lunar phases. A complete hunting scene teaches future generations the best techniques. You've invented bow and arrow technology. It's a silent revolution that fundamentally changes your relationship with the animal world. You no longer need to get close enough to a deer to touch it with a spear. You can kill it from 50 meters away with lethal precision. Making a bow requires sophisticated knowledge. You need specific wood, yew, ash, or maple, cut in the correct season when sap has dropped. It must dry for months under controlled conditions. The string is made from specially processed tendons or precisely braided plant fibers. You've conquered the oceans. You build the first true watercraft. Not just floating logs, but designed boats. Wooden frames covered with waterproofed skins, with hydrodynamic shape to cut through waves. With these boats, you sail to Australia. It's a 70-kilometer journey over open water, out of sight of land. It requires star navigation, route planning, understanding of ocean currents. It's the first time humans demonstrate systematic exploration capability. Once in Australia, you encounter animals you'd never seen. Giant kangaroos the size of horses, wombats the size of rhinos, 7-meter saltwater crocodiles. And you hunt them to extinction in less than 10 years. It's the first mass extinction caused directly by humans, and it won't be the last. Your language explodes in complexity. You have thousands of words now. You can describe not just physical objects, but emotional states, abstract concepts, future possibilities. You can tell stories that last hours, transmitting complex cultural knowledge through memorized narratives. At the end of the Paleolithic, you are recognizably human. You have complex language, sophisticated tools, art, rituals, basic medicine, social organization. Your brain is nearly modern-sized. Your emotions are complex: love, hate, hope, despair, pride, shame. But you're still completely dependent on what nature offers. If animals migrate, you migrate. If plants don't grow, you starve. If climate changes, you adapt or die. And climate is changing. The Ice Age is ending. The world as you've known it for hundreds of generations is transforming. Let's move on to the second era, the Mesolithic. 12,000 years ago, the ice has retreated and you're learning to live in a completely new world. If you woke up in the Mesolithic, the first thing you'd notice is abundance. Relative abundance, of course, but compared to millions of years of brutal scarcity you've just survived, this seems like paradise. The glaciers are weeping. Mountains of ice that have been immobile for 100 years now spill rivers of frozen water toward the sea. The air that, for countless generations, has been cutting like blades is now simply cool. For the first time in your species' collective memory, the eternal winter is coming to an end. Your camp is no longer a damp cave. It's a structure you built intentionally. Wooden posts, walls of interwoven branches, roofs of waterproofed skins. You have windows, holes covered with animal bladders that let in light but block wind. You even have primitive furniture, benches carved from logs, elevated beds made of branches and skins, shelves for storing tools and food. It's history's first interior design. You've invented the bow and arrow. It's a silent revolution that fundamentally changes your relationship with the animal world. You no longer need to get close enough to a deer to touch it with a spear. You can kill it from 50 meters away with lethal precision. Making a bow requires sophisticated knowledge. You need specific wood, yew, ash, or maple, cut in the correct season when sap has dropped. It must dry for months under controlled conditions. A master archer can shoot 12 arrows per minute with deadly accuracy. It's humanity's first truly effective ranged weapon. You develop industrial fishing. You build wicker traps that channel fish into corrals where they can't escape. You weave nets with plant fibers that can capture dozens of fish simultaneously. You carve bone hooks in multiple sizes for different species. During salmon runs, a single tribe can capture thousands of fish in weeks. You smoke them on special racks, preserve them in salt when available, or ferment them in stone-lined pits. Fishing changes your relationship with territory. You no longer need to constantly migrate following terrestrial herds. You can settle semi-permanently near productive rivers. You domesticate the dog. What began as wolves prowling your camps looking for food scraps has become a revolutionary alliance. Dogs can track wounded animals following blood trails you can't detect. They can alert you to approaching dangers while you sleep. They can help you corner prey during group hunts. But more than that, they provide emotional companionship. For the first time in your species' history, you have an effective relationship with another animal. Dogs aren't just tools. They're companions. Your language explodes in complexity. You have thousands of words now. You can describe not just physical objects, but emotional states, abstract concepts, future possibilities. You can tell stories that last hours, transmitting complex cultural knowledge through memorized narratives. You develop the first regional dialects. Groups living just 100 kilometers apart start developing different words and pronunciations. It's the beginning of linguistic cultural diversity. You intentionally modify the landscape. For the first time, you don't just adapt to the environment, you change it to adapt to you. You burn forest areas to create grasslands where your preferred plants grow. You build simple dams in streams to create pools where fish concentrate. You intentionally plant edible bulbs near your seasonal camps. It's not agriculture yet, but it's resource management. It's the first step toward controlling food production instead of simply finding it. Your life expectancy increases to 35 years, mainly due to better nutrition, more sophisticated herbal medicine, and social structures that care for the sick and wounded. Groups are large enough now that they can afford to care for members who don't contribute productively in the short term. 50-year-old elders are venerated as living libraries. Their knowledge about plants, animals, climate, survival techniques represents decades of accumulated experience vital for group survival. At the end of the Mesolithic, you're almost modern. You have sophisticated technology, complex art, music, medicine, trade, organized warfare, landscape modification, symbiotic relationships with other species. You can navigate oceans, survive in any climate, hunt any animal. But you're still completely dependent on what nature produces naturally. If fish don't run this year, you starve. If deer migrate along a different route, you lose your main protein source. And then, someone makes a discovery that will change human history more than any other. They notice that where they accidentally spilled seeds last year, plants are now growing. Not random plants. The same plants whose seeds were spilled. For the first time in Earth's history, an animal understands it can create food. Let's move forward with an era that marked a before and after in humanity. The Neolithic begins 10,000 years ago. You plant a seed and with it, you plant civilization's future. If you woke up in the Neolithic, the first thing you'd see would be rows. Orderly rows of plants someone put there intentionally. Wild wheat, but planted in regular patterns. Barley growing where it didn't grow before. Lentils in quantities impossible in nature. It's strange, alien. For millions of years, humans have taken what nature offered. Now they're forcing nature to produce what they want. Your settlement is the first that can be called permanent, not because it's impossible to move, but because you no longer want to move. Houses are solid structures of mud and stone with deep foundations. Roofs are expertly woven thatch to repel rain. You have streets, primitive but recognizable. Spaces between houses that allow organized movement. Common areas where people gather. Basic but intentional urban design. You are the first farmer. Your hands are permanently stained with earth. Your nails black with constant mud. Your back aching from bending over furrows for hours each day. It's hard, repetitive work, seemingly less exciting than hunting. But it works. You plant seeds in furrows, you dig with sharpened sticks, you water them with water you carry in clay containers from the nearest river. You protect them from birds with rudimentary scarecrows. You care for them like children. And they grow. They grow where you want them to grow, when you want them to grow, in the quantities you need them to grow. For the first time in your species' history, you know you'll have food tomorrow, and next week, and next month. The constant anxiety of daily food searching, the pressure that has dominated every waking moment of your ancestors for millions of years, disappears almost overnight. You domesticate animals for the first time. In stone and wood corrals near your house live goats, sheep, pigs. You feed them with scraps from your own food and plants you grow specifically for them. You protect them from predators. You selectively breed them, choosing the most docile and productive. It's a completely new relationship in life's history. These animals depend completely on you to survive, but you also depend on them. They provide you with meat, milk, skins, bones for tools, even manure to fertilize your crops. Animal milk is especially revolutionary. It's the first renewable food that you can obtain it regularly without killing the animal that produces it. But most adult humans are lactose intolerant. Only some populations develop the genetic mutation that allows digesting dairy in adulthood. You invent pottery. Your hands mold wet clay into shapes that never existed in nature. Perfectly round bowls, jugs with handles, pots with lids that fit exactly. You fire them in special fires that reach specific temperatures for precise times. It's not just functional. Each piece is decorated with unique patterns, geometric lines, animal representations, symbols that are starting to have specific meanings. It's applied art, beauty integrated into utility. Pottery allows long-term storage of liquids and grains. You can preserve harvest surpluses for winter, ferment alcoholic beverages, cook soups and stews that extract more nutrition from ingredients. You have surpluses for the first time in history. More food than you can eat, more tools than you can use, more clothing than you need. It's a revolutionary concept that had never existed before in human experience. Surpluses allow specialization. If you produce enough food to feed 2 families, one family can dedicate itself completely to making tools, pottery, or textiles. It's the birth of professions unrelated to direct food production. 60 years ago, your village has become a city, and you no longer know everyone by name. Your city, because it's really a city now, has streets paved with flat stones, drainage systems that carry wastewater away from residential areas, multi-story buildings built with sun-dried mud bricks. It's primitive but sophisticated urbanism. Çatalhöyük in Turkey has 80 inhabitants. It's larger than many small modern cities. Houses are built attached to each other, with no streets at ground level. People enter their homes through ladders leading to roofs, creating an urban landscape that looks like a 3-dimensional maze. You are a complete specialist. You no longer produce your own food. You're a potter, weaver, carpenter, merchant, or priest. Your work is so specialized it requires years of learning and has nothing to do with basic survival. As a potter, you know dozens of different types of clay, each with specific properties. You know exactly what kiln temperature produces, what color finish. You can create ceramics so thin they're translucent, or so strong they can be used for cooking directly over open fire. Architecture becomes monumental. You no longer build just for shelter. You build to impress, to last, to communicate power. Temples are massive buildings with carved stone columns, roofs supported by advanced engineering, decorations requiring specialized artists. Newgrange in Ireland is a passage tomb weighing 200 tons. It's designed so that only during winter solstice sunrise does a ray of sun penetrate through a specific opening and illuminate the inner chamber. It's astronomy applied to architecture. Trade goes global. Your city trades with places so distant it would take months to reach on foot. Obsidian from specific volcanoes appears at sites 10 kilometers away. Afghan lapis lazuli reaches Mesopotamia. Baltic amber appears in the Mediterranean. The first currencies appear. Metal discs with standardized weight and purity, representing abstract value. You no longer need to directly exchange wheat for tools. You can sell wheat for money, then use that money to buy tools when you need them. The first complex governments appear. A city of 50 people can't function with tribal organization methods. You need specialized administrators, written laws, justice enforcement systems, bureaucracies that maintain records. Councils of elders are replaced by permanent rulers with executive authority. These leaders aren't just temporary coordinators. They're professional administrators whose full-time job is making decisions affecting thousands of people. Religion becomes institutionalized. Temples are no longer just places of worship. They're economic, educational, administrative centers. Priests don't just conduct ceremonies, they also maintain crop records, administer community granaries, organize public construction projects. Gods specialize. You have specific deities for each aspect of life: agriculture, war, commerce, fertility, death. Each with dedicated temples, specialized priests, specific rituals, sacred days on the calendar. Education is formalized. Children no longer learn just by observing and imitating. Now there are specialized teachers who teach specific skills in organized workshops, pottery schools, weaving academies, stone carving seminars. Knowledge accumulates and is systematically preserved. The best techniques are documented in written symbols. Innovations are transmitted not just to biological children, but to any qualified apprentice. At the end of the Neolithic, you've created something that never existed before. Civilization. Complex societies that transcend basic survival and create culture, art, technology, political organization for their own value. But you're about to cross the final threshold. Because in the most advanced workshops, the most experienced artisans have learned to create fires so hot they can melt specific rocks and extract from them materials that shine like the sun. Pure metal. And with it, the power to shape the world according to your will. Let's move on to the last but not least of the eras. The Age of Metals begins. 50 years ago, you've learned to extract liquid fire from rocks and forge with it tools that seem made by gods. If you woke up in the Age of Metals, the first thing you'd see would be the glow. The orange-white glow of furnaces reaching temperatures of 100 degrees Celsius, hotter than anything nature has ever produced. And from those furnaces comes liquid metal, bright as lava, molded into shapes impossible for any natural material. Your smelting workshop is like a temple dedicated to transformation. Bellows made from animal skins constantly pump air to maintain extreme temperatures. Special ceramic crucibles that can resist heat without cracking. Molds carved in stone to create identical objects repeatedly. Pure copper is your first real magic. You can hammer it into sheets thinner than leaves, stretch it into wires long as snakes, melt and pour it into any shape you can imagine. It's the first completely malleable material in human history. But copper has limitations. It's soft. A copper sword bends in the first real combat. A copper tool dulls quickly with intensive use. It's beautiful, useful, but not revolutionary for applications requiring hardness. However, it represents something more important than its practical utility. It's the first time humans have created a material that doesn't exist in nature. It's primitive alchemy. It's playing God. 200 years ago, you've learned to create alloys and with them, to forge empires. The most experimental smelters have started experimenting with mixing copper with other metals. Specifically, they've discovered that a small amount of tin mixed with copper creates something completely new. Something harder than pure copper. More durable, more useful for tools and weapons. Something that will change warfare, agriculture, construction, commerce. Bronze. Your city is no longer just a large settlement. It's an economic war machine with 50 people organized with military precision. Specialized neighborhoods for different trades. administrative districts with multi-story government buildings. You are a professional soldier. Not a hunter who occasionally fights, but a warrior trained specifically to kill other humans efficiently. Your armor is hammered bronze that shines like gold under the sun. Your sword is a lethal work of art, perfectly balanced, sharp as a razor, decorated with silver inlays. Bronze has revolutionized warfare. Your sword doesn't bend in combat like copper weapons. It maintains its edge after cutting bones. It can penetrate hardened leather armor. It's strong enough to stop another sword attack without breaking. War chariots, pulled by horses trained specifically for battle, are the tanks of the Bronze Age, mobile platforms from which expert archers can shoot while moving at speed. A military innovation so effective, it dominates battlefields for centuries. The first true empires appear. Your city controls other cities, which in turn control towns, which dominate rural villages. It's a political hierarchy extending across territories so vast it would take months to cross on foot. The Akkadian Empire controls from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. Egypt dominates the entire Nile Valley, from the cataracts to the delta. These are political organizations administering millions of people with sophisticated bureaucracies. Writing becomes literature, no longer just accounting and administrative records. Now you write epic stories, poems, philosophical treatises, complete legal codes. The Epic of Gilgamesh is sophisticated literature exploring themes like mortality, friendship, the meaning of life. Scribes become a powerful professional class. They're the only ones who can read and write, making them indispensable for empire administration. 200 years before Christ, you've learned to work iron, and with it, you've put weapons in everyone's hands. Bronze has a fatal flaw. Tin needed to make bronze is extremely rare. When tin supply is interrupted, your entire civilization collapses. But iron is everywhere. Any blacksmith with a hot enough furnace can produce iron weapons. Not perfect, not beautiful like bronze, but functional and cheap. This means not only elites have metal weapons, common soldiers, farmers, even slaves can obtain iron swords. The military monopoly of bronze aristocracies collapses almost overnight. You are part of the first industrial military machinery. Your army has 0 soldiers, organized in legions with specific specialties, heavy infantry with complete iron armor, archers with composite bows that can shoot arrows 300 meters, cavalry with stirrups allowing effective mounted combat. Siege weapons can destroy walls that took decades to build, catapults launching 100-kilo stones, mobile siege towers taller than enemy walls, battering rams that can break reinforced gates. Architecture becomes monumental. The pyramids of Giza employed 20 workers for 20 years. Each stone block weighs more than 50 men can carry. Moving them from quarries requires kilometer-long ramps, complex pulley systems, logistical coordination rivaling modern projects. The Roman Colosseum can seat 50 spectators. It has hydraulic systems to flood the arena, elevators to raise animals and gladiators, complex underground tunnels for personnel movement. It's engineering that won't be surpassed for centuries. You develop the first complex monetary economies, no longer just direct barter or simple metal coins. Now you have sophisticated banking systems, international credit, speculative investments, futures markets for agricultural products. Mesopotamian bankers lend money with compound interest. They finance commercial expeditions in exchange for profit percentages. They create the first complex financial instruments. Science emerges from magic. Greek mathematicians develop formal geometry, theorems that can be logically proven, sophisticated numerical systems. Archimedes calculates the value of pi. Euclid establishes geometry foundations still taught today. Babylonian astronomers predict eclipses with precision. They create calendars tracking multiple celestial cycles simultaneously. The first systematic philosophies appear. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle develop philosophical systems addressing fundamental questions. What is justice? How should we live? What can we really know? Buddhism, Confucianism, Judaism develop complex ethical systems that transcend tribal survival and address the universal meaning of human existence. But power has terrible consequences. Iron empires are conquest machines that devour entire civilizations. Assyria completely destroys Israel, deporting entire populations. Rome razes Carthage so completely they sow salt in its ruins. Slavery becomes industrialized. Millions of people are forced to work in mines, plantations, massive construction projects. They live in conditions worse than animals. Nature becomes exploitable resource. Massive deforestation to feed smelting furnaces. Industrial-scale mining leaving permanent scars on the landscape. Intensive agriculture, exhausting soils that took millennia to form. For the first time in life's history, a species is actively modifying the global environment in ways affecting climate, oceans, atmosphere. At the end of the age of metals, you're no longer really prehistoric. You have massive cities, complex governments, sophisticated economies, monumental art, literature, philosophy, science, organized religions, advanced technology, global trade. You've evolved from hunter-gatherer to civilization creator, from intelligent animal to geological force, reshaping the planet. From the first stone carved in African savannas to the first iron sword forged in Mesopotamian workshops, millions of years have passed. Millions of generations of humans who lived, fought, loved, died, and transmitted something to their children. A better tool, a new idea, a stronger hope. Every time you light a fire, you're repeating the most important miracle of the Paleolithic. Every time you plant something in your garden, you're recreating the Neolithic agricultural revolution. Every time you use a metal tool, you're honoring the first blacksmiths who burned their fingers learning to tame liquid fire. Your prehistoric ancestors didn't know they were building the future. They believed they were just surviving another day. But every small innovation, the first controlled fire, the first planted seed, the first forged metal, was a brick in the construction of something they could never have imagined: modern civilization. The DNA running through your veins is exactly the same that ran through the veins of that first woman who planted the first wheat seeds. The instincts that make you protect your family are identical to those that made Paleolithic hunters share their last meal with the tribe's children. We are the direct children of prehistory. And although we no longer live in caves or hunt mammoths or forge bronze tools, we remain, in our deepest core, exactly what they were: humans struggling to create something better for the next generation. When you look at the night sky, you're seeing the same stars that guided the first prehistoric navigators across unknown oceans. When you feel love for someone, you're experiencing the same emotion that kept the first tribes together during the coldest Paleolithic nights. Prehistory didn't end, it just evolved. It transformed into written history, then classical civilization, then modern empires, then the digital age. But at every step, it remained the same fundamental story: humans using their intelligence to survive, thrive, and create a better future. When you use your phone to communicate with someone on the other side of the world, you're doing exactly what the first humans did when they developed language: using technology to connect with other humans across impossible distances. When you plan your career or save money for the future, you're demonstrating the same long-term planning capacity that allowed Neolithic farmers to store grain for future winters. When you wake up every morning and decide to work to improve your life, you're channeling the same impulse that led a Paleolithic hunter to carve a better tool, a Neolithic farmer to plant one more seed, a Bronze Age smith to perfect their alloy. We are prehistoric. We remain prehistoric. In our deepest fears, in our most basic instincts, in our most fundamental impulses, we remain exactly the same creatures who trembled in dark caves a million years ago. But we're also something more. We are prehistory's culmination. We are what all those millions of generations were unknowingly building. We are their dream made real. The next time you complain because your Wi-Fi is slow, remember that your ancestors took 1,000,000 years to develop language. The next time you get frustrated because your food delivery takes 30 minutes, Remember that your ancestors could go weeks without a decent meal. The next time you feel small and insignificant in the universe, remember that you are the direct descendant of the most successful survivor line in Earth's history. That each of your ancestors was smart enough, strong enough, lucky enough, and determined enough to survive long enough to reproduce. That you carry in your DNA the legacy of millions of years of innovation, adaptation, survival against impossible odds. You are prehistoric, and that makes you extraordinary.